The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight! We're firing up the TV party party tonight! Alright! 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 Screens light up, brains shut down, talking trash about the best shows in town. No homework, no disguise, just hot takes on the studio line. Lock in, hit play, let the noise begin. Lock in another episode, another spin. No ratings, no mercy, no skipping the commercials of culture. TV party tonight. TV party tonight. Same screen, same fight, same damn podcast tonight. All right.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. And tonight, our favorite show is Sports Night, Season 2. But more important than that, listen up, my friends, because there it is. Woo! The man you've been waiting for. Meet my friend Gavin. To some, he's the boss, but really, he's just a soul power kind of guy who knows how to make it funky. Whenever he walks in, I got that feeling, woo, that things are about to get wild. He doesn't just walk, he moves like he's on a night train. If you're feeling down, he'll tell you to get up off of that thing. Get on with the good foot. Trust me, with Gavin around, I got you. I feel good. He's super bad. He's cold sweat, and he's definitely out of sight. Give it up for the one and only casual hero, Gavin Napier. Hottest
How are
working
you
man
this
in
evening, Mark?
podcasts. I am very good. You're the hottest working man in podcast tonight.
That doesn't happen very often. Not anymore, anyway.
It is weird the way my brain works, and I know you know that, but hear me out. I saw a skit on TikTok. Someone was doing James Brown, and I went, I need to now introduce somebody as James Brown. Here you are.
I'll take it.
So
I'm also living in America.
That is the one that it's weird. So I had ChatGPT, not ChatGPT, I Google Gemini write that for me because God knows I wasn't putting any effort into it. And it's the one song they left out that I had in my head. I wanted to be like, he's living in America. Get off of that thing. Gavin Napier.
I think West Virginia still qualifies as America.
But just barely.
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 We did secede once.
Did you?
Well, we seceded from the Confederacy and joined the Union. That's how we became a state.
Gotcha. Huh. American history. And
Yep.
a grand. So, Gavin, when you last graced our screens, Jesse Starcher will be with us shortly, so you and I can just kibitz a minute. Had you on for season 1 of Sports Night, and I wanted to ask you, when you watched this the first time, did you... I don't remember if you had watched this contemporaneously or if you had gone back and watched it. Did you go all the way straight through from season 1 to season 2, or was there a break in between?
Just a heads up, there's probably going to be some chimes any second. I'll mute myself when that happens for everyone's sake. As you can see, I'm homeless because the closet that I once lived in, we're in the process of preparing a nursery and a space for a second child. So it's been taken over as storage. Yeah. So I'm happily homeless, but I'll spare everyone listening to the chimes in our living room clock. I caught Sports Night.
1 second. If you're going to come on this show and have random clocks go off, I insist they be cuckoo clocks.
Unfortunately, it is not a cuckoo clock.
I'm saying you should get some cuckoo clocks.
I'll work on that for the next appearance.
Thank you. Please continue.
I caught Sports Night on Comedy Central probably a year or so after it had been canceled. I was attending school in Asheville, North Carolina, which was about 4 hours away from...
I would have just let the chimes play. Just talk over the chimes. He's got me on finger hold. Oh, look at that. Musical chimes.
About 4 hours away from where I lived, where I grew up. And the section of student housing that I was in was brand new. And I was the first student in student housing. Now, it wasn't a set of dorms like you would typically find on a college campus.
Mm-hmm.
The campus was a renovated lodge in the surrounding property. And student housing were a set of 4 cabins that had been divided into 2 dorms each, and each dorm could accommodate 2 people in that section of student housing. I was the only person in any of the 4 cabins, so had a TV and would just flip through looking for things to do out of boredom, and stumbled upon episode 2 of season 1, The Apology, and it hooked me. And I think at that time, Comedy Central was running them from like 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night during weekdays. So I watched them straight through in 4 episode blocks when they came on. And I enjoyed it. It was my first exposure to Aaron Sorkin. First exposure to Peter Krause, first exposure to Josh Charles, was familiar with Felicity Huffman, William H. Macy, certainly familiar with Robert Guillaume because I'm a child of the 80s and had seen both Soap and Benson. So immediately reeled me in, and I really thought that the performance of Josh Charles during The Apology, particularly his monologue when he talks about his brother, was unique enough to a sitcom at the time this originally aired. You know, you go back to late 90s, early 2000s, there weren't a lot of sitcoms that were doing things like that. And it was unique. It was snappy banter, and everybody loved Sports Center at that point in cultural history. Sports Center was a fixture. Dan Patrick, Keith Olbermann, Stuart Scott, Rich Eisen, Scott Van Pelt. The catchphrases, you got up, you watched Sports Center, you went to work, you went to school, and you talked about the sports highlights. So the fact that it was also culturally adjacent and relevant to something that existed already in my field of interest just made it easier to watch and easier to get into.
You and I were kibitzing before the show started tonight, and one of the things you noted was I had said that season 2 matured from season 1. It's less chatterboxy. It's less, not totally less. It still has some of this, but it's less statement, repeat, repeat of statement, clarify statement, repeat statement again, take statement for a walk, shoot it in the head, revive it, and then have it chase you into the river. There's less of that going on. I had said there was less of Josh Malina being the mouth of Sorkin. They toned him down considerably. There's more sports in season 2. There was a big complaint I had about season 1. Like, this didn't feel about this felt more like what The Office would become, and less what what this says in the namesake. What it says in the title, Sports Night. But the other thing, and you mentioned this, they got rid of the laugh track, and I would say that is a huge improvement on the show. They just let the thing be a workplace dramedy and stopped forcing sitcom structure on people.
Yeah. And again, going back to the era in which it was created, a lot of people were experimenting with a lot of different formats on television. And there were a lot of new things, and some of them caught on and some of them didn't. I don't know that Sports Night would have ever taken hold in the prestige television era. It's certainly, I don't think it's going to hold up against Mad Men or Breaking Bad or Deadwood or Justified or what have you. But I do think that it would have stood a better chance had it come along 10 years later. I think people would have been a little more open to that style of dramedy, the 30-minute fast-paced dialogue. You've got a little bit of romance, you got a little bit of drama, you've got just enough levity to break it up. It's certainly not as dreary and mopey as 30-something was, but it's not truly a comedy like The Cosby Show or what have you. So
Yeah.
I think it was kind of a victim of the era it was in, but it's also a really good snapshot of that era.
Here's an even better comparison. It's not Murphy Brown.
God, no, it's not.
Like Murphy Brown was a hello, Jesse.
Hey,
Jesse, when are you sending me tracks for your Stiznarky
you
debut
have to
album?
stop
The audacity of the mundane.
in the middle of this podcast. You got to bring that up. Unbelievable.
You had all day to respond to me, and you didn't. So I'm being a petty girl about it.
Clearly, Gavin comes to a podcast to discuss something that he dearly loves, and you do this.
You were late. You hadn't responded. I have a perfect album title. You know what's holding up the works at this point? You passive aggressive thing. You.
All right.
Hi.
All right.
How are you?
Sorry, I'm late, guys. We had obviously we couldn't find a safe spot quick enough, so I sat here for the last 5 minutes, sitting here watching him try to find a place to save. So it was finally done. I even gave him a 5-minute warning. So blame my kid.
Oh, I will.
I was finished with my kid at 8. I was finished with my kid at 8:15. Just saying.
All right.
We watched They Clone Tyrone tonight for tomorrow.
Well, okay. All right.
So
what have I missed? What are you guys?
I'm about to pitch it to you,
great.
Jason. So
Teasley's nowhere to be found.
You could just let me host my show for a moment.
Okay.
We were talking about how this has become. We're just talking about the changes from season 1 to season 2. I'm not going to repeat the entire list, but as you were coming in, we were kind of talking about how they really shifted away from strict sitcom structure and just let the show breathe, be what it was.
Right.
And I was saying it's Murphy Brown, just as a point of comparison, is also a workplace comedy, but they leaned into like the laugh track, and it was definitely more looking for laughs than it was just being what it was, where sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's more dramatic. I would say even the times Murphy Brown got a bit, like, I can't remember the word I was going to use, but almost sappy, especially once Murphy Brown had the kid. So anyway, I want to, now that you're here, we can start talking about the show itself. I want to talk about right off the bat, Dana and Casey, because they were doing the will they won't they last season. Then Dana and Gordon split up, and she had realized that she had realized that she had an opportunity with Casey, and she blew it. There was a whole thing with her and Sally, and then season 2 opens up, and they're ready for each other. They are hot for each other, and I really want to talk about this because I think it's low hanging fruit to say that it's all Dana's fault they didn't get together. There's certainly a big argument for that, but I'm kind of on Dana's side, and I'll tell you why. I'll set this up, and then I'll explain why I'm going to defend Dana in this instance. The one time I'll defend a woman, and then I can let you two tell me I'm wrong. And you two can be the misogynist for once. Isn't that exciting, Gavin? Are you ready?
Very.
So Dana realizes very early into their potential courtship that Casey went from being married for a very long time and ending in a bitter divorce to kind of nothing, and having a friend with benefits with Sally, and then was about to jump into what would have been a long-term committed monogamous relationship with her. And she was like, and this is where I think her point is sound. She's like, you don't know what you want. You think you want me, but you really don't know. And all you've ever had is this other woman, which ended badly. For us to actually have a shot, you should go out there and date, see what else is out there, kind of, let your hair down, sow your wild oats. And then at 6 months, when you've kind of had that period and you realize what a shit show it is what a shit show it was in 2000, never mind what it's going to become in 2026. Yeesh. Right, ladies? Anyway. And then we can get together. And Casey's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And she's like, no, you don't understand. I want this to work. But it won't work if you don't understand what it's like to be with other people. And you're just jumping basically from one marriage to another. I see Dana's point. Like, I talk about this with people all the time. that, if you don't go through the proper development of teenagerhood, sorry, I hit a button, of teenagerhood, and like figure out your personality, figure out your likes and dislikes. By the time you become an adult, you've heard many a middle-aged woman go, "I don't know who I am without my children. I don't know who I am without my husband. I have no hobbies. I have no interests. I have no personality outside of mom." Like, it goes the same for men too. If you don't have that stuff kind of figured out, you go into adulthood, and then without responsibility and the people around you, you're just kind of an empty husk of a human. So I don't think Dana totally handled it right, but I at least saw where she was coming from, Gavin. What are your thoughts on the Casey Dana thing, which will end badly for the two of them, but we'll get there when we get there.
If I want a cheeseburger from Wendy's, I don't need to eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's and from Rally's and from Burger King and from Jack in the Box to figure out that I want the hamburger from Wendy's. I can just go to Wendy's and get the cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what you want, you know what you want. If it ends poorly, it ends poorly. But the idea that you have to go sample the menu at a dozen other restaurants over the next 6 months before you can just get the cheeseburger that you want, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And I think now that we are comparing living, breathing human beings to food, I think I fulfilled the misogyny part of the directive here.
Good work. Because in your analysis, no one's eaten a cheeseburger before, by the way.
Right.
Or they've only had mom's cheeseburger, and now they're experiencing fast food.
Sure. But the idea that you can tell someone you don't really know what you want, it's a little arrogant. It's more than a little short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're not what that person wants. But that's not a good reason to tell them they can't have or try to figure out what they want. So I thought it was ridiculous, and I think they both got what they deserved.
What are your thoughts, Jesse? I'm sorry, I know you were done.
No, I was just going to say, she had to watch him move on, and he got freedom.
Let me get there, but I said I saw where she was coming from. I didn't say I completely agreed with it. I saw her logic. I explained her logic, I think, well enough. But it doesn't necessarily mean I think she's, like, not a dope. Anyway, to you, Jesse.
Well, I'm probably the least experienced guy to ask something like this.
With your dating history, why would you say that?
Since I married the woman that I dated in 92. But yeah, I completely agree with Gavin here. The whole 6 month thing irritated me. Like, oh, you got to take 6 months and figure out what you want. And we knew what was good for both of them. I didn't understand why they had to take a break or at least avoid getting together in order to determine if they could work out or not. It's both of them wanted the same thing. And what happens is Dana, soon regrets what she did, what she imposed on him. When he starts, he goes out on a date with Pixley, which is only person I've ever known named as Pixley.
Whitest female name ever.
But it irritated me. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I understand this is the big city life. So maybe this is something that, she knew. And again, not the most experienced here to talk about dating other people, because I didn't do much of that before 8th grade.
Well, let me say this. I have done a fair amount of dating, both in my teens, in my 20s, in my 40s. Last year, I have some experience in this, and I will say this: once you introduce more people into your circle, you lose more control over your circle. And telling him to go out and date a bunch of women so that he'll know for sure that Dana is who he wants. Gavin threw out the word arrogant, and I think I'm going to double down on that. She's going to assume he's not going to find anyone better than her in a town of professionals. in a town of smart, educated, talented, learned women or bimbos. The city's got both. And whatever, and so it's like, you don't know what you want. So go into that supermarket over there and you're going to realize you're not going to find what you want in there either. And you're going to come back to me. And it's like, no, there's way too many choices in the supermarket, continuing the food analogy. I will absolutely find something equal or a better value. You will incidentally make me realize that I do want something else besides you. I do want something better, and I'm going to find it because I'm hot, I'm tall, I'm male, and I'm famous. It was like swing and a miss, pal. So while I saw where she was coming from, it ended about the way I thought it was going to end.
I will say, just real quick,
yeah.
I did like how the show handled this.
Mhm.
Like, they didn't immediately like, okay, she regretted what happened and they are immediately a thing again. That feels like that didn't happen. It felt very realistic.
No,
in
he
my
lost
opinion.
his patience with her, which is another thing. It was just, I always say, and maybe Gavin, you can speak on this, or maybe it pings your memory about the show in another way. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for women to make men chase them, so long as eventually you slow down and let the man catch you. And she is juking, jiving, and zigging, zagging, and eventually he, as I say, men will eventually get tired of chasing and go after slower prey, and that's just the way it is. Like I mean, that's a law of nature kind of a thing. You're not going to keep chasing something that is perpetually out of reach, right, Gavin?
It is, and well, I think that particular scenario is more than a little unrealistic. I can't imagine two adults having that conversation. I'm sure stranger conversations have been had, but it seems so off the wall to me.
Hang on. You need to hang out more on the Metal Hammer of Doom and listen to some of the shit Cooper's been through. It has happened.
Fair enough. But I will say, I think that the fallout from it was handled very realistically.
Mm-hmm.
Casey goes out and he has dates. She finds another object of her affection. The world moves on. And there's some tension in the workplace. Everybody calls them out on it. You got to move past it for the good of the dynamic of the show and the friend group and so on. I think that it was handled very realistically. And so while I do think that the entire concept was stupid, I think that the way that it was handled in totality was about as well as could be expected.
I'm glad you brought up she finds another object of her affection, because you're talking about William H. Macy.
Yes.
His introduction to the show. So the setup here is that the show is third. Third is not good. Even in the third being behind ESPN and whichever the other one was. And Fox Sports, yeah. And they were like, it's still third. And at some point, either we're competitive or we're going away. And what I liked about season 2 was it made the business side of things something that I am, if you've ever watched an episode of Damn You Hollywood, something I'm very attuned to. That I believe in art for art's sake, but also if you're going to sell your art, art has to, make money. So the suits are coming in and they're like, we've given you free reign. We've tried to help you. You've ignored us. You're not making enough money and we have to make changes. So they bring in William H. Macy, and William H. Macy is there as a consultant, and he is going to help raise the ratings of the show. And he is sort of introduced initially as kind of a virus to the cast. His opening line of, I don't care if any of you work here. I'm being paid to do a job. I do it well, and I left my vacation early to do it, you fuckers. And, it's like yikes. I have to say, just as an aside, my girlfriend's been watching reruns of Shameless. So to like the whiplash of fucking William H. Macy and Shameless to this, I was like, oh, he's not a bum anymore. He's actually like an intimidating figure. I will say this, Gavin. I like the William H. Macy character. The bit where they tried to offer him Robert Guillaume's job and he's loyal to Robert Guillaume, and so he told him to go fuck himself. I thought it was great. and I think it softened him a bit. And then they don't do anything with him until like later in the season. My comment about the use of William H. Macy is not enough William H. Macy. I thought he was a great addition to the show. I thought the way he was used versus hostilely, then not so much, and then at the end as Dana's love interest was all great stuff. But it's a 22 episode season, and I missed him for most of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm a bad guest because I didn't research to see what else William H. Macy was doing at the time. Mm-hmm. Very distinct possibility he was also filming episodes of ER as Morgenstern, the chief of staff at County General. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what his film schedule looked like. I don't know what movies he was in at the time. Certainly a prolific actor, and I thought his delivery of the Sam character was top notch. He fit into the cast seamlessly. I really, as much as I enjoyed he and Dana playing off of each other, I also enjoyed his interactions with Josh Charles when Josh Charles was like, "Hey, let us in." He became a three-dimensional character very quickly, and a lot of that can be chalked up to William H. Macy and the talent that he has. But I also wonder, did he get pulled in because the marriage to Felicity Huffman was very new at the time? They'd only been married for a couple of years. Did they think, oh, this would be neat to work together? I don't know how he got introduced to the show. I don't know what else he had going on. But like I said, I really enjoyed his addition to the cast. And I'm like you, there were several times I thought, why isn't he here?
Yeah, he disappears for a couple of episodes, and I'm just like, is he ever coming back? Did he succeed? What happened here? Go ahead.
And then he comes back to tell you he's leaving.
Yeah, yep. What a breath of fresh air. And I don't know if you guys mentioned this before I got on here, but this season seems a bit like I know we were talking about rapid fire dialogue a lot in season 1. This one seems to be just paced a little bit slower. Not a whole lot.
I mentioned that to Gavin. They turned down the yappity yap.
And William H. Macy, I felt like when he came and was on the screen, it was like he was almost immune to that. I mean, he was just this presence that could be.
I'm not participating in your reindeer game.
That's what it felt like. I loved his portrayal of this character. Just like you said, he could have been two-dimensional. I'm here, I'm a big imposing presence. You could be fired, blah, blah, blah. And, but no, what ends up happening is we learn about him. And I don't know if you guys got the feeling about this or not, but like when he's forgetting everybody's names, is he doing that on purpose? Do you think he's doing that mess with people? That's what I thought too, because you could see the smile on his face when they left the room after he couldn't remember their name. And you're like, he is just messing with people, which again adds another dimension to that character. And then the way he handled his somewhat quick relationship with Dana, which by the way, I was not shipping those two at all. Not at all. But, he ends up, it sounds like they're going to stay the night together, and he makes this adult decision to be like, no, this isn't going to happen, and leaves while she's pretty much involved in her work. A great character. Also a great way to kind of raise tension amongst the workplace. That's a lot of what this show is about, is high stakes television, economics, and the drive to entertain and try to keep all the ratings up. That's television for you. And he's kind of there to really dial that pressure cooker up a little bit.
He's also responsible for the most quotable line from either season of the show. Don't assume that just because you're talking and I'm looking at you that I'm paying attention.
that honestly should be the Rattledge and Broadcasting motto. Jesse's fucking playing Snap. I'm watching football or basketball.
It's the truth. That's the truth.
So anyway, if we don't have anything else about William H. Macy, I'll move on to. I got to talk about Robert Guillaume here. He's a great actor, and he's doing the best he can. But you can tell he's having some difficulties in that role, and it was a little painful to watch him. I'm going to start with Jesse here. What did you think of Robert Guillaume this season?
So I felt like the series was at least smart enough to address what was going on with him. And I mean, there is a lot of discussion about aging and mortality in when he's on screen. And I think one of the most emotional moments for me, I'm gonna leave the squids to Gavin, but there's a moment I think in that delivery where he's talking about how all of this stuff is going to happen when I'm gone, and he's starting to realize that he is going to, his days are numbered. And what's sad is the fact that unfortunately in real life his days are numbered, and it's sobering. Again, where we were at in season 1 with the laugh track and everything, here we are definitely going into drama territory here, which is great, and it's handled well, I think, in my opinion. I feel sorry for what the actor's going through, and I feel sorry for what Isaac has to endure here with everybody coming into his office every time and trying to bother him. But no, I mean, you feel for this character.
Sorry, just a real quick interruption. Fucking Joshua Molino. What if I were to call you?
Talk about scenes you couldn't do today.
What does I forget? What he doesn't use the N word, but what he calls
Sambo.
Joshua,
oh God!
How many takes do you think it took to get that one right? Because he either couldn't say it or laughed every time. Like, what if I were to call you Sambo? And Robert Guillaume, in the best take they had, has to stifle a fucking laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
that's good shit.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know what other roles he has after this, but his addition, or I should say, him being there for both seasons. Actually, his dramatic return in the second season, being able to see him was great. But yeah, I love how they handled what happened with him and made it a part of the story.
He is the heart of the show. He grounds the show, and I think he in season 1 and largely in season 2, especially in the episodes when William H. Macy isn't there, he grounds the show. He lets the show breathe. He slows things down. He's a classically trained actor with decades of experience, and it shows. I think many of the most emotional moments in season 2 come from the character of Isaac Jaffe. Either intervening for his people with the network or discussing his own mortality. When Jeremy talks about having a bad day and he says, well, I can't dance with my wife. When Natalie has the breakdown over returning Jeremy's things, and he is the fatherly figure that is there to comfort and console her. Also, it was noticeable, but because they had addressed the stroke on the show, there were several episodes where they shot him directly from the side, so that the affected side of his face and his affected hand was not front and center on camera. And so they gave him the dignity of protecting him through the way they filmed. This essentially is the end of Robert Guillaume's on-camera career. He has an appearance on a single episode of CSI. He has a couple of other one-offs, and he does a lot of voice work for Disney as the voice of Rafiki, either on cartoons or in like the Kingdom Hearts video games. So a lot of voice work after this, but this is essentially the end of his on-camera career. And it's certainly not an iconic role like his role of Benson. It won't be remembered like his character on Soap. But what a wonderful, grounding, understated performance on a show that, as we look back at it, had a cast that was way more loaded than we realized at the time.
Yeah.
He just looks in pain for a lot of it, and it's hard to watch. But the stuff with Natalie, like you said, is so good, and him as that elder, fatherly figure, that grounding stone that everyone kind of touches and clings to, because over the course of the season, Josh goes in there and blows up. Jeremy goes in there and blows up. Jeremy's girlfriend's name again? Natalie goes in there and blows up. Dana practically lives in that office and is blowing up. Like, that's an every other episode thing.
I enjoyed the interactions between he and Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that relationship came across on screen very, very well.
Yeah, I mean,
that while Casey was the popular one,
mm-hmm.
but Dan was Isaac's substitute son on the show.
Yeah,
and I thought that relationship came across very well.
Yeah, Dan talks about that, like, we had a moment and all of this. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jeremy and Natalie.
I really thought you were going to say squids.
He's just sitting over there with his fingers crossed. Squids.
So we are reminded just how young Natalie is, because you would. It's hard to imagine somebody in their early to mid 20s having the role that she does on that show, but God only knows when she started there. And if you go straight through, you graduate college when you're 22, so it's conceivable 4 years later, with enough professionalism and experience, you might sit where she sits. So fine, it is what it is. But there are times where you are reminded she is not a middle-aged woman. She is a young 20-some-odd-year-old woman. And it's hard to have this conversation with you two guys. You've never lived. But I, in my 20s, used to go dancing. I went to clubs and concerts and dated, and I tripped the light fantastic, and I painted the town red. In your 20s, you don't know sometimes, even though you have college and you have a career and you think you know what you want, maybe you don't. And that's kind of being in your 20s. So a lot of 20-year-olds now, or people in their 30s who reflect back on their 20s, will tell you that their 20s was trying to figure out what kind of adult they wanted to be, because they didn't get to do this when they were teenagers. So this all comes to a head when Natalie gets on a list to go into some sort of club. And this is another one where I saw it from both sides, which is excellent writing on the show's part, because a lot of these storylines, a lot of these conflicts are, depending on how much life you've lived, you can see it from both characters' points of view. So Natalie's like, I'm in my 20s, I'm young, I want to go experience stuff and make bad decisions every once in a while. This is the time to do that. I'm not going to get to do it forever. And then there's Jeremy, and I see where she's coming from. And then there's Jeremy, who's like, I know who I am. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. And I may not know art, but I know what I like. And if I go there, I'm not going to like these people. They're not going to like me. We're going to have a bad time. I'm going to ruin your good time. Why are you bothering to bring me to this? Just go have fun. Go without me. Or here's the thought: don't be a whore and just come home and hang out with me. There's lots of choices here. You have agency.
What a concept.
And she's like, no, I'm young. Now's the time to be such things. And he's like, and this is a great line. This is my second favorite line of the entire season, besides, I don't care if any of you work here. It tells you a lot about me. There's a lot of things I don't like about you. I love you. I want to be in this relationship, but there's a lot of things I don't like about you. Here. And because she is Natalie and she is a woman, she says back to him, there's a lot of things I don't like about you too. He was like, terrific. What you going to do about it, bitch? And so they break up. That's how I remember that in my mind. And then the rest of the season, Jeremy is like, and when I'm saying a lot so that we can talk about a variety of things here, you don't have to wait for me to break in to introduce it. Jeremy goes to a bar. And this is Jesse's favorite scene in the whole season. I know it is because he sent me pictures of it. Jeremy goes to a bar, and a nice woman talks to him. And as it turns out, she's an adult film actress. And he is like, well, I like whores. However, I'm an intellectual and a professional and a bit of a knob. I shouldn't like whores. It's beneath me. Whatever shall I do? Let me handle this every bad way possible. And she, of the most understanding adult film actress types, just an absolute Herculean carrier of emotional labor for this doofus, gives him chance after chance, and he blows every single one of them. He is Casey at the bat, just letting them all go over the plate and swinging at nothing. And so by the end, him and Natalie are still doing a will they, won't they, and they don't. They run out of runway. Maybe they'd have gotten back together in season three if they had had one. But I am sympathetic to the breakup. I am sympathetic to the point of view on why they broke up. I, like Jesse, look at him with the adult film actress and going, this is a lot of Aaron Sorkin working out his own shit. What do you think, Gavin?
I think it's very relatable in the sense that it's the one fight that gets way bigger than it should in a relationship, and it becomes a breaking point. Mm-hmm. And I think most people understand that. I think most people have gotten to the point where something that should be small and trivial and easily settled just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until
they let the room fill with gas and then they lit a match.
Yeah. And I will say throughout the second season, certainly compared to his introduction on the show and compared to a lot of the first season, Jeremy grows up a lot in the second season. He still has his neuroses. He's still a huge dork, but he grows up a lot. And he's able to assert himself in situations that he would have been a walkover in the first season. And I think the same is true for Natalie. She's in the process of growing up, but she's not at the same place that he is. Mm-hmm. And so that maturing process is difficult. It's messy. And if you have someone that has already gone through it, pairing them with someone who is in the middle of it is almost always going to end poorly. Sure. And so again, I think what they were able to do with their relationship, like so many of the other characters on the show, they created this layered, realistic, three-dimensional relationship with relatable aspects that a large majority of the viewing audience will have gone through, and it creates sympathy, as you said, for both sides.
Your thoughts, Jesse?
All right. So we're going to do 3 strikes, you're out, Jeremy. This is how it goes down. Okay.
Okay.
Strike number 1, and I want everybody out there to listen really closely. If there's anything that you take away from this podcast, do not get into a relationship with a coworker. Okay? It's not going to end well. Usually 99% of the time, if it goes wrong, you now don't have to worry about the fact that you lost a girlfriend. You might actually walk yourself right out of a job at the same time, or you're going to want to get out of there. It's going to make things really awkward.
Yeah, it definitely shatters your social structure.
Strike 1. Strike 2. Sabrina Lloyd asks you to go anywhere with her. You go.
Is she on the list, Jesse?
She is on the list.
Right there next to the singer of Lacuna Coil?
Yes, indeed. Right there.
Okay.
That's strike number 2. And then strike number 3, when you're down and out and you're in a bar and you find out that Jeremy is such a forest for the trees guy. Like, he's got to analyze everything and not look what exactly is sitting right in front of him and what wants to try and, this girl, I understand, adult film star, some people are going to have some hangups, but she's clearly, just like you said, very patient and also willing to possibly give it a shot and get into a relationship with this guy or just hang out and have a good time. What's the harm, dude? Instead, he's got to put every bit of, neurons in his brain to work to try and figure out, like, how can he cope with this?
What's it going to defense? And I'm going to be the Robert Winfrey of this podcast. It is hard to want something with your penis, but know that in your heart and in your soul, it's bad for you.
Mm-hmm. So, I wanted oh my goodness, what was his sister's name that he kept writing to? I cannot remember her name.
Louise.
I wanted a Louise letter where he's like, "Hey, Louise, dating a porn star." And, I thought for a second, like, I thought that was just going to be a one-off thing during that episode where he met the girl at the bar. But the good thing about this show is they kept it going for a couple more episodes, and he was kind of trying to make it work. But of course, then he brings her to work and he's like, "You got to lie. Tell everybody you choreograph animation." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, man. All right." So
It's
Strike
really
three.
weird to see such a really cool dude be made to look so poor. Like, it's one of those where, like, how do you make yourself look even worse? If you're the kind of guy willing to date a porn star, how do you make yourself look worse? Do everything he did. Like, with dating the porn star is the least offensive thing you did.
I had very little patience for Jeremy this season, and granted, yes, he did grow up a little bit. He's learning, you know, and I do like the fact that these two, Jeremy and Natalie, broke up, and she confessed her love to him at a bar, and then in the same like breath said, "I hate your guts." Very real.
Ain't that love?
Very real. Very real.
I could not think of an more apt definition of marriage. Anyway, speaking of marriage, Gavin,
I think one of the best parts of that arc was how it ended. That it took her painfully telling her story behind the veil of a lie for him to realize, oh, this is a human being. And at the point that he realizes it's a human being, she's had enough of him because she's just humiliated herself for his sake. And
yeah, this is a porn actress we're talking about.
This is this is a woman who has sex for money on camera, and the humiliating thing was having to lie for this dork.
Right. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. And so, again, it's one of those things. Is it a little far-fetched? Sure. But it was handled well.
Yeah.
And it was handled in a way that there's a lot of shades of gray there. It's not this person's right, this person's wrong. Again, you can sympathize with Jeremy and the moral conflict that he has, but that doesn't give him an excuse to treat another person as less than human.
Yep.
And so I thought that it was handled very well.
I'd also like to talk about some subtext here because we're focusing a lot on Jeremy because he's one of the stars of the show. Could we talk about her for a moment? That she eyes him in a bar. Now, she eyes him in a bar because if not, there's no plot. I get that. But in universe, she's eyeing him at the bar and she was like, well, here's a sad, lonely, dorky white guy. How could this possibly go wrong for me? I'm a hot piece of ass. I should be able to wrap him around my finger. He'll never treat me badly. You know? Like, oh boy, Johnny, did you bet on the wrong horse? But I think that's very telling in the writing. You know, that I think Aaron Sorkin's sort of message to people is just because you dress us up nice and give us lots of money and talent and smarts, doesn't mean we're not bad people or capable of very bad things. With the you know, the road to hell is led with the best intentions. I think it's something like that, how the phrase goes. And that's why I felt bad for her. Like, of all the characters that have come in and out of Sports Night, her story, and I swear it's not just because she's a pornographer, you know, a porno actress, though I'm sure that'll be said of me. I really did feel the worst for her because of that. Because I caught that, like, why else would she talk to him except that he seems safe? And even the safest guy in the bar is capable of high levels of douchebaggery. And it's like, you know, this is why some women think you can't trust men, because even the nice ones are shitty. And I think if it were done today, it would be written poorly. That very same arc. I think it would be a lot more lampshading. It would be a lot more blunt. And, you know, and at the end of it, she would have blue hair and chanting outside the fucking office with, like, you know, shit in her face. But
yeah, like I said, I thought it was going to be a punchline for that one show.
Yeah,
and it you know, ends up being a relationship. And so yeah, I think because I am conditioned to what I've seen today, that's why I thought that would happen.
Yep. All right. But saving it to talk about last, but I want to go over to Gavin and I'll have you lead the discussion here. Talk to me about Dan this season. Because Dan goes to therapy. Dan talks about a lot of things. The therapist says the therapist is. They don't write therapists very well. They wrote her excellently. Yeah. And I saw my way of dealing with people therapeutically in this woman when they're having a casual conversation and she just stops and goes, "Why doesn't your father like you?" Yeah, punch him right in the fucking solar plexus. Make him talk. Love it. Oh my God, I took my pants off when I saw that. I was excited. So anyway, your thoughts, sir, on Dan in his entire season-long arc.
Yeah, I thought Dan was the star of the show.
Yeah.
I thought Josh Charles was excellent in this, and the amount of growth his character goes through from start to finish is really a perfect example of how to write a season-long character arc from the golden age of television, where seasons were more than 10 episodes long, and you had to fill things, you had to stretch things and let things breathe and develop slowly. And we see the neuroses of Dan laid bare for the world to see. We see him project. We see him try to cover up and hide behind false bravado. We see him lash out at the people closest to him. We see him be very raw and vulnerable with Casey, saying, "Hey, is it okay if I just come in and sit down? I'm not going to be funny." And then we see at the end, he's comfortable with who he is. He can turn down the one person that disrupts his world. One of the last shots of the show is him tearing up her card with the number on it. And to see that growth, to even see the fracturing of the relationship between he and Casey, and acknowledging that there's work to do to put it back together. I just really, really an excellent job of letting one character shine and carry the load for the show on his back. And to this day, Josh Charles is one of my favorite actors. Like he's not the Chris Pratt leading man in a lot of stuff, but he turns in good performances no matter what he's in. And I always come back to Sports Night and I think, man, that's the first place I saw this guy, and I love the character.
Jesse, your thoughts on how season 2 treated Josh from Soup to Nuts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I took away from his arc was, watching him become insecure. I think and then dealing with that in the moment and trying to put off that he isn't. When Casey knew what was going to happen when he said, "Hey, I'm on this list, and you're not." It's like the top, hottest. What was it, the top sports? Most important
100 most influential people in sports. Yeah.
So he's like, "Well, you're not on it." And he knew that the news was going to get to him. And Casey was like, I got to be the one to tell him.
It's hard to hear that you're the Genetti.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, Dan puts on like that doesn't bother him at first, but then you obviously start to see it does. The moment he has where he like just right on air, kind of throws it to Casey and purposely throws him off.
Sandbags. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right. Does and then realizes almost immediately like he regrets what he did. He knows what he did. He just hurt a friend. And so it's good that he's going to therapy because he's got to work through this stuff. When he shows up at the therapist's office and he's starting to get, he's a little unshaven, you can tell that he's been going through it. Mm-hmm. And then finally I love is it Seder? Is that the way to pronounce it? Yeah. Where when they're going to have the Seder and he wants Casey to come in there and Casey's hurt. Casey's like, I'm probably not going to be there. And obviously Dan wants to take this moment to apologize, or at least, and he does it to the rest of the people, but Casey's not in there. And then when he walks out, Casey's outside and they are, they kind of bury the hatchet and they embrace and they finally, can move on. That's one thing that's, one of the core themes of this show is dealing with something and trying to move forward. And nothing, I think that was very, very evident in Dan's arc this season. And watching him, just like you said, when you compare him to season 1 to now, he's got cracks, the charming, funny guy that he was a lot in season 1. It's now he's becoming a human. He's a person that has to deal with these things. And that funny, charming thing might be a coping mechanism that he uses to deal with some of the stuff that's happened to him in the past. So again, I think this is 2000, right? This is 99, 2000 season, something like that. I don't know what else. I'm sure there's other things that are kind of approaching the mental health aspect of people in television at this time, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Let me tell you how I've never really liked the way Hollywood has handled treatment and mental health. There's a few places, a few corners of the world where it was handled appropriately and it looks somewhat real. This was one of them.
Mm.
The way she handles him, the way a very masculine male, sports-oriented masculine male, successful, good-looking, suave masculine male walks into an office and says, I'm hurting, I am in pain, I'm hurting people around me, and I don't know what to do with all of this negative energy. Help me. But he has no language to say that, so he says it the way this character does.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's half flirting with her. It's like he's literally like, I don't know how else to get your attention, so let me be kind of a toxic douchebag and hope you see through me.
Now, one episode when he shows up at her door, he's like, "This isn't going to be a session."
Yeah,
and it turns into a session.
He might as well have pulled up his skirt and showed her his leg. Like, I was like, I know what you're doing. And
not a session.
Yeah, sure, it's not.
And even that episode, I think, really shows the difference between season 1 and season 2. Because in season 1, every time they focused on an individual athletic accomplishment, it was the triumphant running of a marathon by a man who had been persecuted politically and had his legs broken. It's someone overcoming the odds. And in season 2, the guy jumps and breaks the record, and then it's immediately taken from him. Mm-hmm. It's not all happy endings. And so even something as simple as that episode where you're led to believe, oh, we're going to get this nice, neat resolution where this guy at the end of his career finally hits his goal, and then it's taken from him. Mm-hmm. He's the world record holder for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I want to talk about something else somewhat attached to that, but I want to talk about something else first. Keep going.
No, go right ahead.
It's Dana and her brother.
Steroids.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the first season. I know we talked about like the John McCain steroid thing and all of that was going on around this time, if not shortly before. Steroids in baseball, the home run race and all of that. So Dana's brother is caught taking steroids, gets suspended from football, and Dana is like freaking out. And she is reminded that everybody in the world is telling him he's a piece of shit. Maybe you just be his sister. And she has to restrain her own, self-restraint, I think, is a lost art in today's world. And it was nice to see.
There's an understatement.
I am subtle, Gavin. Subtle is my middle name, as is Taven. And it was nice to see self-restraint written in a Hollywood sitcom. As Dana has to realize that, it ain't always about you. Sometimes it's about what's good for your loved one, and you have to, stifle yourself. It's not the end of the world if you have to swallow some of your negative energy to help a loved one. You won't die, contrary to popular opinion, and that's what she does. She takes the good advice of her coworkers and she consoles her brother, after giving him a bit of a tongue lashing. And then she's just like, all right, I'm here for you. And I thought that was great. What did you think of the steroid bit there, Jesse?
So, I mean, when you look at another thing that this show does well, the media, television, internet right now, it's all about headlines, newspapers. It's a headline. Headline. What's going to grab the attention of the reader? And then usually the reader sees the headline and moves on. What they do here is they teach you that there are humans. Mm-hmm. They humanize things. These are people that have made mistakes, and we kind of get to see the human side of like what it is to realize like, oh, I just made the biggest mistake. I'm a headline. How am I going to have to deal with it? How do I, and Dana's.
Hang on, correction. It was me and Jason talking about the program where I brought up the steroid thing because what you're talking about is what Jason and I talked about. Keep going.
Gotcha. But yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I took away from that. The fact that, oh my goodness, steroid scandal. Here's 11 names. All you see is the 11 names.
Yep.
And you don't know who those people are. And I say know who those people are. And we get to see, Dana knows her brother and knows he messed up. And instead of giving him, just like you said, a tongue lashing, she's got to be there for him. And that's powerful.
Yep. Your thoughts, Gavin?
I enjoyed it. Being an only child, I can't say that I truly understand the dynamic within a family and siblings. But it certainly made for good television. And Felicity Huffman is a good enough actress to deliver it convincingly. Her brother certainly looked the type of the big dumb steroid galoot. And I thought that was also a shift in her relationship with Casey. Because at that point they were still being very antagonistic to one another. She didn't want to hear what he had to say. She was jealous. And for him to just give her very practical advice that she ended up taking, their relationship softens once again from that point forward. And it's not a romantic relationship at that point, but they're able to be human to one another again. And so I think, even going back to something that Jesse said about Josh Molina, the character of Jeremy, dating someone at work, how it shatters your social structure. They touched on that with him being excluded from the game. And having to wander through awkwardly and having the conversation with Dan and Casey where Dan said, look, we'll get through this, but right now it's going to suck.
And I think we end that episode where he's just sitting on the couch and they're out playing the game and he knows all the answers, but he can't play. And then, oh man, that was rough.
Personal hell.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
So, I think the scenes like the one with Dana's brother and scenes like that show that Sorkin definitely understands character development. He understands relationships and how to write them in a relatable way that hits you in the emotional spots that he wants to hit them. And it's disappointing that West Wing took so much of his attention away from this, that Sports Night kind of stumbled to the finish line and never got to season 3. But also, the West Wing becomes a juggernaut that is his golden ticket in Hollywood and means he can do anything he wants for the rest of his career. So I get it. But yeah, really well done scene, really well done dynamic between Dana and her brother.
Last thing I want to bring up from this show is how it ends. Greg Clarkson, I believe his name is, the actor from the Marvel movies.
Clark
Gregg, sorry. He starts
with some
showing
questionable sideburns.
Yes, indeed.
He starts showing up towards the end, and as it turns out, he's thank God this was 20 some odd years ago where we somewhat had a tolerance for billionaires. And they could conceivably be decent people. And
Google was not at everyone's fingertips to immediately find out everything about him.
Yeah, he was on what island now? Oh, we know what you did. So yeah, he's there, and the whole thing is Sports Night may be going away. It may be the company may be sold, yada yada yada, and he's gonna come in and buy it. He's gonna save the show. But while that's happening, there's a debate over whether or not Casey, Dan, and Dana should all go to LA and jump on a new show, rebuild. So I don't have my thought about this is, as a series conclusion, I thought it was fine. It kind of reminded me of the end of Fuller House, though. Like, here's the thing. If you don't know if you're coming back or not, and you kind of need to leave it, you want to kind of do an Oz where you could continue if you're demanded you come back, but if you're got to leave it here, this is fine where you left it. Mm-hmm. I think it largely succeeds at that. If they know that this is coming to an end, it kind of reminds me of the end of Fuller House, like I said, where everyone has a good conclusion and then they fuck it all up at the end, and the girls all move back into the same house. Like, I want to stay. I don't want to go and be a human and evolve. Like, ugh. I'll never. Pat and I pissed as hell at the end of Fuller House, just to let you know. So it kind of my opinion of the end kind of depends on what the actors knew and the writers knew at the time, but that's really it. I like Dana, Felicity Huffman, and Greg Clark had good chemistry. You know, he's a really good actor, and he's very unassuming and warm. So a lot of that made a lot of sense to me, and I liked it. Jesse, your thoughts?
I was so hoping that like Clark Gregg's character was going to be God. Like I don't know.
Morgan Freeman.
I don't know if it was Quantum Leap or something that made me like, oh man, this guy's just going to be kind of sitting there at the table, and this is how we're going to end things, and God is going to kind of, just come down, and she's going to interact with God, and then she'll go back in anyway. Not the case. He ends up being a billionaire, and he's the guy that buys the network.
He's kind of God then.
Yeah. Well, all right. You got enough money, you can do whatever you want.
Clearly,
there is. I mean, I agree with you. I think if we're going to end it, this is. I was fine with it. I was fine with them. Everybody's safe. Everybody can. This family can remain as long as they need to, and we go on about our lives, and everybody's happy. It's a happy ending. It's which is not.
Do you remember how Night Court ended?
Night Court
left.
Night
Everyone
Court
went on
ended.
to go do other shit.
Yes, they did until they brought it back again. Just recently. I don't know if you watched any of the new ones, but Dan Fielding still an attorney,
which is bullshit because he went to go follow Marky Post.
Yeah.
Well,
everyone left. Everyone left at the end of Cheers, if you'll remember. Great.
That's
Sam stayed in the bar. Sam stayed in the bar, but everyone else is gone.
That is sad. That is sad.
That's life.
That is the way. Look, when the Rattle Broadcasting Network ends, I hope you all go somewhere. I am the last man standing, and I blow it up behind me when I walk away. Just
pushes a button.
Yes.
Nice. That's all I had on the final one.
Gavin, I'm going to give you the final word here, and then I'll chuck it back to Jesse for last licks.
For as much as we talk about Josh being or Jeremy being the self-insert for Sorkin, I feel like the whole final episode is kind of self-referential. I forget the actual term, quo, whatever. But it's Latin for where are we going? And there was uncertainty about the end of the show, whether it was the end of the season, if it would be renewed or not. So you have that little wink and nod. But then there's also a line from Clark Gregg's character that says, if you can't make money with sports tonight, you should get out of the money-making business. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, that's Sorkin delivering a message to the network. Mm-hmm. Like, even though his attention is elsewhere, he's still very proud and protective of this show. Mm-hmm. And so it hit me immediately. Is it a little kitschy? Is it a little too on the nose to have somebody swoop in and save the day as a mysterious benefactor? It is, but also it's still television. And for all of the realism and all the layering that you see in the characters, it's okay for it to still just be television. As I mentioned to you, Mark, am I sad that we never go back and get to revisit these characters? I am. I think there was a lot of meat left on the bone. But at the same time, as I told both of you, I really don't know what you would do. You would have to continue to bring in outside romantic interests for people, because there's only so much of the hokey pokey that you can do with the cast of characters.
You'd have to do what they did with The West Wing. They'd have to keep bringing in new actors.
Yeah. And it's certainly something that Sorkin is good at, and he's able to weave people in and out. And so I'll trust that he would be able to do it. But knowing that the 45 episodes are all we got, they're a satisfying 45 episodes.
I'm picturing people, there's various actors in Mandyland, and in this alternate universe where Sports Night exists, there's other actors from Sports Night meeting other actors of the West Wing in Mandyland, and one of them says to the other, "First time? No, it's not my first time."
But it'll never be truly a comfort show for me like Ted Lasso or The Office or whatever. But it is something that I do like to go back and just dip my toes in from time to time, get the snappy banner, revisit some of those more emotional moments. And, as Jesse was talking about them not knowing, is this the end or not? It reminded me of Parks and Rec, because there's about 3 seasons in a row on Parks and Rec. Whereas the show's going off, you're like, that really felt like a series finale.
Community. God, there's a series that ended 3 seasons too late.
Still waiting for the movie. But sports night is always going to be not a guilty pleasure, just maybe more of a hidden pleasure for me, because it doesn't have the big cult following, even for a Sorkin show. Even with the cast that it had, you really don't hear people bring it up very often. But I'm glad you guys watched it, and hopefully you don't feel like it was a colossal waste of time. I do genuinely, Mark, I need to know when the episode will be that we will talk about the bioengineered space squids that go beneath the icy surface of the planet to harvest minerals in space.
Europa.
Okay. When I was a kid, Mike Tyson was the master and the ruler of the world. HBO laid out a grand 2-3 hour block so that we could watch Mike Tyson show everyone why he was the king of boxing. And then they had to scramble as Mike Tyson would knock some poor ass motherfucker out in the first round. Seconds into the first round, even. Mike Tyson would hit a poor man. His soul would leave and go to heaven on wings and a halo. And the HBO broadcast team would stand there, dick and balls in hand, and go, let's see it again for the 48th time. Who haven't we interviewed yet? Jojo the Monkey Boy is here. Jojo, what did you think of the Mike Tyson fight? I just wanted to talk about the boxing episode.
Yes. Huffman.
I laughed my ass off at this. I've watched boxing obviously since I was a little kid, off and on. There were years I didn't watch it at all, but I certainly talked about it enough with Gavin, talked about it a lot with Pat, talked about it a lot with Robert over the years. The boxing thing where they're prepared to go for an hour or two and the fight ends in the first round. They're having to scramble to fill time. I was like, oh, those were the days, and that's why I brought up Iron Mike. Gavin?
I don't know if Cutman was supposed to be a direct pastiche of Harold Letterman, but man,
yeah, dude.
Hey, Jim, one of these guys is going to win the fight, and the other one will almost certainly lose it.
That was my favorite episode. Great
just a tremendous episode, and it stands out because it shows when they wanted to be funny, they could really deeply, genuinely be a funny show. And it was such a nice palate cleanser partway through the season, a good chance to reset that even with all of this emotional stuff going on amongst the cast, they can all gather together and recognize the sheer absurdity of what just happened. And how many times, Mark, as you said, throughout the 80s and right into the cusp of the 90s, did people have the same moment that Isaac Jaffe had? What do we know in the fight? It's over. You missed.
He walked right in right after it happened.
Pat told a story, and I can't remember which fight it was, but his family had kept him out all night on a night that he had told him he wasn't old enough to say, leave me the home, you fuckers. He was a child. He had to go where they were going. He could not be left alone.
Almost certainly the Spinks fight.
Yeah, and they get back to the hotel. They turn it on, and it's so-and-so has knocked out so-and-so. And so would begin Pat's lifelong career of crime and violence as he threw his television and his relatives through
one bad day.
Yeah. And that is why we know Pat as we know him today. But let me tell you how many. I think it was. I think Melissa and I had gone out one night, and I come home and I'm like, oh, maybe I can catch the beginning of the Canelo fight, and what I caught was the end as they were interviewing Canelo. I'm like, oh, god damn it. Just in case you're like, oh well, that's boxing. It's not like that happens in other sports. May I present to you Exhibit A, the very first Fox fight for the UFC. Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos, the one and only fight on the broadcast. For 45 minutes, they rolled package after package and hype after hype. This was the biggest fight in the history of the UFC, bigger than George St. Pierre versus Jake Shields, bigger than Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. It was the night the UFC entered the mainstream zeitgeist, and it was over within seconds.
Yep.
Junior Dos Santos knocked Cain Velasquez clear into prison. I may have missed a few steps. Jesse, your thoughts on Sports Night Season 2? Is there anything else we should talk about?
You guys, I didn't have a chance to do this on Season 1, so we're gonna go down through Starcher's notes,
Okay.
and we're gonna take 5 minutes, and I'll just read off my favorite part of each episode. Sound good? All right,
Sure.
episode 1. All right, Dan hates soccer. Okay, episode 2. Episode 2, my gosh, Dana's biker outfit.
Oh, yeah. Hotsy.
Episode 3 was a more serious one. This, I think, I could see the cracks that are happening in Dan here. That the network has notes. They're working to fire Isaac, it seems like. It's scary. Episode 4. This is where Dana takes her underwear off at a date, and this is a thing, which I had no idea this happens. Okay. All
Made
right.
total sense to me.
Sure. Episode 5, I have listed down here a KY test, because this is the Y2K stuff that's going on, but somebody gets it mixed up and thought he said a KY test. By the way, I appreciate the little stuff that doesn't make this show evergreen, such as the Y2K episode. Episode 6, why weren't we recording? That's what I wrote down here for that one. Then we have episode 7. Again, this was pretty, this was a pretty serious episode, but I wrote down here, Dan cannot talk to women for some reason. Episode 8, I've got this listed as the Christmas episode. We have the athlete of the millennium, but this is the moment where Isaac gets a cheese grater, which was really great because he takes it and sets it on.
That whole thing annoyed the piss out of me.
You didn't like it?
I got it. It's not that I didn't like it. It's Casey going, I just want to buy you the best gift ever. And I'm like, the best gift ever is your attention and grace and love, Casey. Has everyone forgotten the spirit of Christmas?
But that, to me, that also showed the difference in the relationship that Isaac had with Casey and with Dan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Episode 9, I've got Isaac tells Jeremy he didn't win the award. That was, poor Jeremy. Yeah. Episode 10, Pixley's still around, apparently. Pixley is at the bar and runs into Casey here. Let's see what else we got. Episode 11, Dan's dad. So this was that whole boxing episode. Mm-hmm. It had all that, plus we get to meet Dan's dad, who is, it's hard to impress that guy, apparently. I'm double parked. Episode 12, William H. Macy is back at that point. Episode 13, one of my favorite moments in here was, I think somebody had mentioned the war on full words. So, how there was a lot of abbreviations and stuff like that were going on. I've noticed that a lot. Like everything's sus now. Can't say suspect. We can't, it's a war on syllables is what it is.
I have a rule in my house, and I hope Gavin will have a rule in his house when his children are older, and that is no internet stuff.
No internet stuff.
No, you are not allowed to say internet stuff in my house. My son has used some internet slang, and I have told him, if you're going to continue to talk that way, I will tie you to a tree outside like the dog you are. And he was like, yes, Father, I understand. We use full words in this house. Full.
What? It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Right? All right. Episode 14. This is where I specifically talked about earlier. You should not have a relationship with somebody that's at your workplace. Episode 15, Jeremy was not invited. A lot of the stuff we've already talked about. Episode 16, Jeremy sits down at the computer and we get to hear the AOL. Welcome. Welcome.
You've got mail.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Movie Phone.
Then we have some bets going on during draft day in episode 17, which is pretty interesting. Episode 18, Jeremy trying to get fired. We talked about that. Episode 19.
What if I call you Sambo? And you could feel Joshua Molina try to jump out the window during that scene.
Episode 19, what a better villain to kind of put into this series than John Delancey playing the upper level like CEO or whatever he was, CFO or something like that.
He's a great actor. I love him, and he's so good in that scene.
Yeah.
Like
It was also really neat to see a very young Tim DeKay on there who would go on to be one of the leads on White Collar with Matt Bomer.
I to throw this out there, like, I know the culture right now is very anti-corporate, anti-billionaire, establishment. But let me tell you, it takes a special kind of writing to make me sympathize with the corporate guy. Like, I'm sitting there in the office with, sitting there like I'm there. I'm watching that scene between him and Dana, and I can see both of their points of view. And like I'm kind of sympathetic to him, to where it's like, this is a place of business. Stop screaming, you harpy.
And then as we get into these last, I think 3 episodes here. So I have episode 20. This was really powerful. I think this, struck a lot of emotions in me. Isaac worried about his grandson being scared of him. That's sad. I mean, it was again, a very human thing. Episode 21, we get a John Rocker joke. Again, of the time. And then episode 22, a lot of this is, a lot of my notes were about like, what in the world is going on? Who is this guy? Dana's worried about committing securities fraud. But yes, everything ends up being a happy ending. So there you go. That is my notes quickly for all 22 episodes of season 2 of Sports Night. It was a lot of fun.
Sports Night purchased by Shield. The end.
Wonderful. Folks, when someone makes a Marvel joke, that's the phrase that pays here on the Rattle Broadcasting Network. So thank you for joining Gavin, Jesse, and myself in our review of Sports Night Season 2. Yesterday, I'll go backwards. Yesterday, Alexis, Kat, and Andrew Roscoe reviewed Fallout Season 2. Monday, myself, and I know everyone's describing the Send Help episode as quite contentious. You haven't seen contentious. Robert and I have been so much worse. That was a sissy slap fight. I fear not all is good in the lover's realm that is Robert Winfrey and Mark Radulich, as we talked Crime 101, and we had ourselves just a wonderful, lovely, romantic time talking about it. Didn't fight at all. Didn't agree, but didn't fight. Prior to that, I and Jesse did our impressions of the Twin Towers, Akeem the African Dream, and the Big Boss Man as we took on the mega powers of Mick Wanamaker and Robert Cooper and their defense of art by humans while being attacked by our art by AI. Mm-hmm. As I conducted a 2-hour torture conversation over all of my Fra Diablo AI created music, which I love, and I think everyone should listen to. And it makes me sad that it's not more supported by my friends and family. Would you like to give your impressions of that conversation, Jesse?
Oh, I mean, look, I didn't know how well it was going to go, but it went about as well as you thought it could with us two talking about, hey, guys, listen to our AI albums that we made. And they're on the other end going, I don't think I'd like to listen to anything that AI made at all, ever. So.
Yeah, I absolutely abused my friends in that episode. Mick actually was fine. Mick said what Mick said, and she's entitled to her opinion. Robert Cooper got visibly ill by the end of that 2 hours. He had lost weight, his hair. He looked gaunt. He may have had the gout. It was not a good sign of things to come. So anyway, that was this past week. Next week, Monday, myself, Robert, and Jason are reviewing Psycho Killer. For those following the drama here at the Rad Religion Broadcast Network, I will not be taking my children to the psychosexual murder movie. So everyone can not call CPS on me. I looked at the parents' guide, saw this, and went, well, even I have to draw a line here. Gavin will not be taking his son either, in case anyone was worried. No, we will not be taking our children to go see Psycho Killer. So, a week from tonight, myself and Jesse return to the AI Slops studio, to where we will compress the BoJack Horseman review into a depressive Johnny Cash-esque song.
Yeah.
A week from tomorrow, we conclude our Black History Month show. Well, actually, tomorrow, Jason and I are talking the Book of Clarence, the American Society of Magical Negroes, which I love. I think it's great. And They Clone Tyrone, which was also very good. And then a week from tomorrow, we kind of close out Black History Month with a Denzel Washington focus, Glory, Mo Better Blues, and John Q. And then Saturday, we really close out Black History Month by looking at Robert Townsend, Hollywood Shuffle, The Medium Man, and The Five Heartbeats. Gavin will be back later this year to talk Justified. What was the subtitle to that show?
City Primeval.
Yes. We're going to talk Justified, City Primeval, and we'll bring Gavin back. It'll annoy his wife. It'll be fantastic. There will be pie in Punch. Jesse, tell us about the comic books you've read lately.
Oh, well, watch out for a very... this is probably going to be a few weeks, but we had a discussion on Monday about Astro City, Volume 1, first 6 issues and the half issue, and it is some of the most, very well-written comic books from 1995. Kurt Busiek coming in with some really, really great storytelling. So that'll be probably showing up in a few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. That's Unspoken Issues. And then the Source Material Comics podcast itself, I think this past Monday, was myself and Mark Radlich.
Bullshit. It was mostly Jesse, and I talked for 2 minutes after you.
Is this the one where I put my notes in later?
This is the 15-minute episode of which I talked for 2.
I had to go in and be like, you know what? I don't think I actually met the guidelines of trying to at least get a 22-minute episode in. Couldn't get it. So I added some extra stuff at the beginning. But anyway.
He added 13 of the 15 minutes.
Grant Morrison doing Joe the Barbarian. Don't worry, you're going to get your chance to talk in a couple weeks when we discuss Nameless.
Oh, good.
And that is, I think, a 45-minute show. So we tear that thing to pieces. And then, of course, me and Evan Bevins get together and we talk Marvel Snap. So if you're interested, check out the Snap Material podcast. We drop about 3 or 4 episodes a month. Yeah, we're looking forward to the next season, see what's going to be happening there. And with that being said, that is all I got.
Gavin, thank you for joining us. Jesse, always a pleasure. Be well, be safe, and behave.